Welcome, everyone, to our LinkedIn Live today. I'm Bruce Heckfeldt. I'm going to be your host, moderator. I'm going to introduce our guests in a second. I just want to kind of do a little housekeeping here. Our topic today is emotional intelligence, the heartbeat of high performance teams. I'm excited for this conversation, and I'm excited for our guests here. This is something I don't think we talk about enough in leadership, which is really around kind of emotional intelligence and really kind of understanding the kind of more emotional psychological aspect of what really drives team performance, team dynamics. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some strategies. We're going to talk about, as a leader, how you can be more aware of this. Important, interesting topics. Before we do the guest, before we get into it, a couple of housekeeping rules or housekeeping things I want to cover. If you're on LinkedIn and you want to put in a comment or question, go ahead and do that onto the LinkedIn page. We will see those. I'll try to work in questions that come up as we go. If you're on YouTube, we're also streaming on YouTube here. I'm not going to be watching the YouTube comments, so jump over to LinkedIn if you want to do a real-time question to the group here. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and leave comments, questions there. We'll be watching both YouTube and LinkedIn for questions and comments. We'll try to respond to those reasonably timely manner. But if you are watching replay, go ahead and do that because we will be watching them. We'll try to get to those. So with that, let me introduce our guests. First up, I've got Christopher Filipiak. He is a sales consultant and coach specifically for CEOs, helping them add revenue to their business and helping them succeed as sales executives and sales performers. With that, Christopher, welcome to the program.
Hey, Bruce. Good to be here with you and Dane. I'm looking forward to a really good conversation.
Likewise, pleasure to have you. Next up, I've got Dane Grovenveld. He is a leadership and team effectiveness expert. He helps organizations integrate inner intelligence with operational excellence and really build truly adaptive cultures. Excited to have Dane on the program. Dane, welcome.
Thanks, Bruce. Good to be here with you and Christopher.
Yeah. So let's kind of start with initial kind of conversation question around what do we mean by emotional intelligence? What do we mean by kind of this, the ability to be aware of emotional states, not only of individuals, of teams? Like, what do you kind of, I guess, how do you describe that, or what are you looking for in terms of leadership or team performance? Dane, why don't we start with you, get your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been learning and continue to be a student in this space. It's been fun working with Christopher on this, reading a lot of books, doing a lot of podcasts. And the reality for me is that emotional intelligence isn't just being aware of where your team's at. It's having a way of tying the feelings that a human is going to be experiencing to how you engage with them, not the work, because you can then get to the work. But I think really starting with feelings. I think in the business world, we've done a very good job since the industrial, era of moving away from our human feelings and our bodies. So I think we're headed back in that direction pretty fast right now.
Yeah, Christopher, let's get your take. Like, why is this important to you? Like, how do you frame this for yourself?
Yeah, I think it first came into my awareness about EQ and emotional intelligence in the books that were written. Kind of I think they came out in the mid 2000s is when I started thinking about that. And then in grad school, I remember Sherry Moss was my organizational behavior teacher, and I know we had specific training on emotional intelligence and strengths and kind of thinking through why was that important. And there's certain tests, right? Diagnostic tests you can take that can rank your EQ. And I think, I haven't thought about EQ as a subject matter, I don't know, in 10 plus years now, or maybe 15 years. And I've really, I think it's the same thing and it's important, but I've started to think about it more as mindset, right? And that's the way, and I think emotional quotient is just mindset, and mindset being how you think and operate your body. And so when you have high EQ or you have that high emotional intelligence, you're able to think more accurately and more from a place of truth. You understand how to operate your body. You understand why your body gets triggered. You understand how you feel. And then you start to become aware that other people have those same experiences, right? So
Mhm.
there's almost like this empathy for the human experience, right? And then you can go, oh, cool, we're two humans with bodies that have emotions, that has feelings, that have thoughts that may or may not be accurate. And I think that's what really emotional intelligence is. And when you can meet each other from that place of truth and authenticity and realness, then you can build better teams and you can have better results in your business. And I also think those are the thing to realize is like these are not innate abilities. These are skills that we can develop
Mhm.
and learn. So like EQ, right, or mindset, these are not like these magical things like, oh, I need to be a better thinker, or I need to be more empathetic. Like, how do I do that? It's not something you wish for. It's something that you, like Dane was saying, it's something you study and learn and
Yeah.
practice, right, with yourself and with your team.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's been interesting. I mean, I originally started as an architect, and one of the reasons I loved architecture was because it was kind of this integration of kind of rational, scientific, engineering kind of thinking with more kind of artistic, kind of meaning making kind of, domains or disciplines. And so I always loved kind of the integration of those two things. And I think as I got more into the business world and, I realized how that training really kind of helped me understand not just the kind of logical aspect of business, but really the meaning side of it. And, what are we doing here to kind of create context for understanding? And
Mm.
you can't really do that without emotions, right? You can't do that without senses of feelings, right? Like we make meanings through feelings, and so kind of it's been curious for me as I've kind of gone through this world on business and kind of as a coach now with teams. It's like figuring out really what's happening because it's there whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
So like the more you become aware of it, I'd be curious in terms of your own work in this space, like how have you built more awareness of kind of emotional state for yourself or emotional state for a context or a situation you're in? Because I find that is like I think Christopher, you said that it's a skill, right? It's not. I think to feel things is intuitive and inherent, and we have the feelings, but being able to actually sort of feel the feelings or understand the feelings or figuring out how to parse those feelings into meaning that we can actually work with is a skill. I think. I mean, I do it with my kids. We were talking about being
Yeah.
fathers here, but use your words, right? Like articulate what is it that you're feeling. Are you angry? Is that really it? Are you frustrated? Are you sad? Are you distressed? Like are you angry? Like what are the feelings? It can be really helpful. But I'm curious how you've each kind of developed awareness around this as an individual. Dane, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah, it's a great question. In our business at Leader, we do a lot of executive coaching, and the old world thinking on coaching was that, well, we're going to ask you a lot of questions and help you come up with answers that are already in your mind. And that, to me, that was limited. And I was having an experience going through some therapy with my son, who was coming through a lot of anxiety, which that generation is right now.
Yep.
And I started seeing them applying some of like the marriage and family therapy frameworks of like, where are your feelings showing up in your body?
Uh-huh.
And let's start there and let's get curious around that before we come to what might have been the rational answer before you access that feeling. And then I moved into coaching with Christopher, and I realized actually business coaching and therapy, they've been apart for so long, but there is a way to bring them
Yeah.
both together and
Yeah.
to actually say, let's lean into our body awareness and our feelings, which nature's granted us, and use that as a way to love ourselves, B, show our team members that we care for them before the work. And then if they see that we care for them and we're interested in what feelings they're having, they're going to be far more open-minded, and they're going to
Yeah.
care more about the work conversation and what we're going to do next. So I find that like my journey has been one of putting those two things together, business coaching and some of the therapeutical frameworks, and then saying, hey, this is a really good way to engage in a human level of conversation before we get stuck on the work, which will often kind of drive us deeper into the hole if we're not addressing those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Christopher, give us your insights on this.
Yeah. I think what Dane's saying about teams and kind of the integration of, whether you think of it as like science, Bruce, like you said, being an architect, or Dane, like integrating like what they know in psychology and therapy with what we're learning in coaching, and like also spirituality, like or physics, like all of these, the truth is the truth, right? And I think all of those different disciplines are just different lenses on what the truth is. And so Bruce, you also hit the nail on the head that like your feelings are the fuel for your action, right? Because as humans, like we take action based on our feelings. So like what we think determines our feelings, and we act on what we're feeling, and our results are created from our feelings. So understanding that, like you know, I don't recommend going through your day like flat or numb, right? Trying not to be in your feelings. Like we're meant to feel as humans. And I think that we feel, this is to address kind of like your question, I think there's two types of feelings that can show up. I think there's these programmed, subconscious, automatic triggers where there's a circumstance that happens in our environment, and then we feel a certain way. Most of that feeling is coming from programming, right? So like we're taught as young children, right, how to feel about certain situations. Like someone cuts you off on traffic, your dad or mom gets pissed off, there's anger, so the feeling's anger, then you get cut off, and instead of being like, man, that was just awesome, I'm so grateful for that, or I love that guy, you're like, oh, I'm gonna kill that fucker. Right? So
it's learned.
You have
100%.
a learned pattern and that's coming from your subconscious. So most people are operating from feelings that aren't conscious. They're triggered, they're reactionary feelings. And this is where like EQ is so important, right? Then you have what I would say conscious feelings, right? Where you're seeing a situation and you're reprogramming how you respond to that information or that stimulus from your environment. So like you can choose feelings that are more aligned with the culture or the team that you want to build, regardless of the circumstance. So you can develop a skill set around how you feel, right? And that doesn't mean you still won't be triggered, because you have a lifetime of conditioning about how to respond to certain things happening. And this is why learning to actually metabolize the trauma and the distortions and the things going on allows you to return to the truth and go like, hey, that circumstance, that environment, those people don't actually have any meaning, and I get to choose how I feel. Like, you know, I work with a lot of CEOs on sales, and so we talk about money all the time, and people have all sorts of monies and stories and triggers around sales or not making the sale. And it's like, you know, one of the things, another example is like in sales, we always say we lost the sale, right? And then how do we feel when we lose? Oh, we feel bad, right? And the goal, like winning or losing doesn't get to determine whether you feel bad. Like you get to choose how you feel, but most of us are programmed in, and then we start to use language that reinforces the feeling, and the feeling reinforces the thought. And so we get in this loop instead of, you know, having some skills around that. So the point is to understand that there's like feelings are coming from two different places. They're either subconscious patterns and behaviors that we learned, or we can choose to raise our level of consciousness and become aware of our feeling. And much of that just requires tuning into your body. So you mentioned the language, right, that you're learning with your son, Dane, right? So you have to have the language. Brené Brown talks about in the Atlas of the Heart that there's 88 different feelings, right? There's five core. If you like, you know, your dad, so you've probably seen Inside Out, right?
Great film, joy, absolutely right.
So, but those are like the five core. So just talking with your kids about joy, sadness, mad, disgust, and fear, right? So just going like, oh, let's like explore what those are. Like, let's just normalize talking about what we're feeling. And then that's developed this language of feeling and body sensation. So that's one way. And then you'll just know, you can know as you raise your conscious level of consciousness and awareness of your body to go, oh, something's going on with me. I'm not feeling grateful or in love with myself. Yeah. What's going on? Or it could be physical symptoms and like I feel sick, like, right? Everything is coming from like sickness, like, or not making sales, or your team is dysfunctional, or not, like, is like, you know, a bunch of angry cats on the street, like something's going on. Or you can, hold on, your computer's breaking down. It's like, all of that's coming from your feeling. It's going like, what am I actually feeling? Oh shit, I'm really sad today. Or man, I'm really angry. Or I'm really, whatever it is, it's learning a skill of noticing what's going on.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And one of the things I end up doing with most of the executives I work with is helping them develop a little space between that kind of that feeling and then the decision they're going to make about how they behave, right? And so, because I think it's like for the vast majority of people, like there's no space, right? There's a feeling and there's an action, right? And it's very reactionary. And you know, it's helpful to kind of start to feel the feeling, like, okay, well, what's really happening here? So yeah, it could be a physical sensation, it could be kind of a strong thought, or you know, but creating that space, creating a little bit of gap between the action of being able to actually do something and create some intentionality and some choice in there, I find is one of the key things. Because I mean, I guess the feelings are the feelings, and yes, the vast majority of them are going to be driven by subconscious wiring and kind of patterns and things that happen in childhood and all this stuff. And I always kind of define therapy as looking back and trying to solve those things. Coaching is deciding what are you going to do going forward. But that gap will then give you some opportunity. All right, it will give you a chance to actually start having a different feeling or making a different choice of like, okay, what do I want to do with this? And sometimes that choice is I shouldn't do anything, right? Like I need to get to a better state because I'm so activated, or I'm so dysregulated, or I'm having such a strong visceral reaction to this thing that my ability to choose a good reaction and a path here is seriously compromised. I call it take myself off the field, right? Like I need to not play right now, right? I need to go sit on the bench.
That's
and I
interesting.
Need to get back to a better state. Yeah, give me some reactions to that.
I really like that framing, Bruce, particularly of like creating the space between the feeling and the action. And I love your format of like taking yourself off the field, but I have seen it work the other way. So I think it depends on the dynamics of the team and the dynamics of the leader. So one thing I've realized lately is, there are some moments where I just have to step off because I'm far too triggered, incensed. I'm not going to have a productive conversation. But there are actually a lot of moments where I can actually step into the field of play and say, hey guys, I'm feeling really tight in the chest about this decision. And right now my default is to say, no, we're absolutely not going to invest in sponsoring that conference or whatever else. I think it's ridiculous, whatever. But where this feeling's coming from is intriguing to me. It's not a big decision. So what else is going on here? Like, let's have a conversation around it. And I've often found in those moments, not the high stakes, I'm going to slam my fist on the table moment, but in those moments that are more in the middle, processing emotions as a team actually makes it a bit more of a team sport. And it models a really good behavior so that the next time as a leader, we often get such poor feedback from our teams coming up in the business. The next time you're like, okay, guys, we're now going to invest in this new software technology and I'm excited to roll it out next quarter. Someone can say, oh, I'm feeling tight in the chest on that one, Dane, because you've modeled the behavior. So I think it's interesting using it as a framework or as a way to create a moment, going back to your point of separating out the feelings from the action and actually inviting a bit more dialogue too.
Yeah. Christopher, I'm curious. I know you do a lot of work with executives on this, and to go on the sales side, you're like rife with all sorts of emotions and things like that. How do you kind of read people around this? Like, what are you looking for, and how do you kind of understand where someone might be in that kind of emotional state, and then kind of how do you help them kind of navigate that a little bit? I'm curious on how you see it in others. Like, it's one thing to see it in yourself, but actually perceive it in others. But any strategies or techniques you use?
Like as a client or as like a
when you're working
someone
with
who
a
I'm
client,
selling to as a client,
when you're working with a
so
client, yeah.
they'll be super resistant. They won't
Yeah.
want to hear it. They'll like be triggered and resistant, right? So like I'll say something, and if they're not if they don't have an emotional reaction, they'll just fall flat. They'll be like, oh, that's cool. But if I'm say something like we all have the same amount of money, or the sales you want are here, and they're like, look at my bank account, I can't do it. It's too much money, right? I'm like, ooh, what's really going on inside of there, right? Because like the truth. Like I know the truth based on like the universal laws, and like the truth is the truth, right? And it doesn't mean that what their experience isn't real, but you can tell like they'll be, either closed down or actually angry or sad. There'll be something like going on where like this person is not loving themselves and not in gratitude. And then it's just like as a coach for that is just going like, hey, what's really going on for you? Like what's in your body, right? Like, hey, like where do you feel lack or scarcity or sadness or anger? Oh, it's like in my stomach. Oh, what does it look like? Does it have a color? Does it have a sound? Does it have a temperature? Can you just give your body 30 seconds to actually metabolize that? Like, laughing, crying, like we're so good at shifting our state. Like I could have you guys think of like your favorite restaurant, and I've done this I think with both of you, and your favorite food, and boom, like 30 seconds later you're happy and salivating, right? And like you we're just like shifting, and that again that goes back to that conscious state. But it's just becomes as a coach who does this with my clients, it's about doing the work myself. It's about being in integrity with like understanding how to feel my feelings. It's about developing a language and the skills around naming feelings. And then it's just being really good at observing people, right? And also understanding that most people, and like this was hard for me to hear the first time, are walking around in a lot of subconscious stories, middle-class mindset, victim thinking, asleep, unconscious, afraid, right? And again, that's just all learned behavior, and just understanding that that's how most of us are, because if we weren't, we'd have the results that we'd want like that, right? So it's all that material that's actually creating our current results. So just being a good student of the work, primarily by doing it yourself, and then being good at observing people and being willing to lean in and go like, hey, like what's really going on for you? Yeah.
Dane, I wanted to come back to this team more, thinking about leaders and teams. And I'm curious, like, I find I've certainly been in a situation where, my emotional state is maybe not the best. Maybe I'm dealing with external things that are kind of highly stressful, or I've got a lot of kind of cognitive baggage I'm holding on to going into meetings. How are there strategies or techniques that you've seen work that help leaders, kind of not dismiss those things, but figure out how to kind of hold those things and still show up for a team or show up for a situation and kind of do the work that needs to get done? Because sometimes it's not convenient to be able to say, hey, you know what, I've got to go process some emotions, right? Or I'm not in a great state. But okay, well, we gotta make a move here. How have you seen leaders, or what do you see good leaders of teams do in terms of kind of being able to manage some of that complexity that comes with emotions and teams?
And just to be clear, Bruce, that's specifically if the leader is the one who's triggered with the emotions, not the team member. Yeah. Look, I think the reality is, we talked about it earlier, taking yourself out if it's a really high stakes moment is probably the safest thing you can do. Sometimes that doesn't work. And what we've experienced with teams that we work with quite often is that if the leader's triggered by something, sometimes the best thing that they can do is set a small task and leave the room and come back. So a good example of that is we're having a conversation about, how we're going to solve a proposal for a customer, and we've got multiple different opinions in the room. And it's a big piece of work. It's a very critical time-bound event for the customer that we need to support. And as a leader, I'm really frustrated. Well, what I can do is I can say, guys, my concern is X, Y, and Z. I just need to go for a walk right now. But I want you guys the 3 or 4 or 5 of you to just process my X, Y's, and Z's. And when I come back into the room, present it back to me. Like, just play it back to me. Like, are my feelings valid? Are my concerns valid? What are you seeing? How might we tackle that differently? The reason that works really well is that I've shared an emotion without going deep into it. I've said, I need a timeout. I can go and walk and do my breathing, or just get outside and have some sun and just reset. They know where I'm concerned. So they've now got an opportunity to work on it. But most importantly, they can work on it without me in the room. So that actually creates a lot more safety. And those 3, 5, 7 team members, they can write up on the board their recommendation, their thought, their response, their follow-on question. And they can have someone represent the team's thoughts without it being, Bob said this or Sally said that about your position there, Dane. And I found those little sprints, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, you give them an hour, but those little sprints make the team feel like they matter, because you're putting it to them. And they give you an opportunity to go away, get reset, and then come back and learn from their wisdom, rather than constantly driving from what is often your place of fear.
Yeah. I don't know, Christopher, if you had any thoughts on that one in terms of how leaders can better manage those situations.
Yeah, I think what Dane is saying is really a beautiful and skillful approach, to doing that. The thing that I would add is, it doesn't actually take that long to process emotion, right? And I think if you create safety for processing emotion, and just be like, I don't know if this like has ever been done, and probably get you fired. But if you're like, listen, team, I'm really effing angry right now, I'm just gonna punch a hole through the wall and get this anger out, like in the room, or can we just all yell really loudly together for 20 seconds, for 30 seconds? Like, you can and this is probably the best look for a CEO, right? But it's like, I just need to really have, like, I need to cry right now. And then you just lay your ass down and cry together as a team, right? I think that's what we need as humans, but I don't think it's as accepted as or normalized. And I think that's where, those things and those passions, like, I think they're beautiful, but they're also like, especially in our like cancel culture of today, like, you don't want to like lose your status, or your ego doesn't want to lose your status. But I think doing that, I guess I have a theory now, right, Dane? Maybe you can test it on your next client. Like, hey, like, is punching holes through walls and crying as a CEO an effective way to build psychological safety with your team?
It's interesting. I haven't gone that far, but what I have seen, Bruce and Christopher, is that when a leader comes out of a meeting or a tough moment and they share, oh, that was really frustrating. I can't believe that customer asked for that. I can't believe finance did that and dropped us in the hole, or whatever the conversation is. Often the team feel relieved, because often as leaders, we've been programmed not to show our emotions, and they see us, we're the duck cruising across the water, the feet are going nuts, but they just see us gracefully going across the top. And when they see that we're in turmoil, just like they're at, they actually feel like the stakes just got lowered. They feel like we're on a team versus team and leader. So I don't know about punching the hole in the wall, but I think going more in that direction of sharing the emotions in the moment is actually great for teams.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to add is, like, you mentioned the difference between coaching and therapy, and all we're really trying to do with mindset work or therapy or coaching is allow ourselves to let go of the old story and tell a different story. Right. We're just looking to tell a different story. So in that moment, you may not have the 5 minutes it takes to like have a good cry and really do like, feeling your feelings, like sunshine walks, working out, yoga, meditation, affirmations, all that is like great, but it doesn't actually allow you to metabolize the trauma or the emotion inside of you. Like, that's a different skill set, right? And it doesn't take that long, 5 minutes, maybe sometimes a little longer, depending on, the whatever distortion or trauma you're trying to metabolize. But you also have the conscious choice to go, like, in this moment, cool. You can use like internal family systems, which is parts work, right? And going, okay, there's a part of me that's really frustrated right now. So it doesn't have to be your entire experience. You go, okay, part of Christopher is really angry. Part of Christopher is totally fine. Part of me is connected with source in all of life. This part needs attention, but it's like, I got you, right? I got you. I see you. I'm going to take care of you later today. But right now, I'm going to consciously show up as the badass, emotionally regulated CEO who's connected with all of life, totally whole, perfect, and complete, has the whole knowledge of the universe, and make a really good decision in this moment, or really choose to show up, right? So that's where you're using your conscious ability to focus, your will, to go, all right, cool. I have these different parts. I get to choose who I want to be in this moment, because I don't have the time and there's too much pressure to actually emotionally process. And so if you take away anything from this call, it's like understanding that feeling your feelings is super important, and that's a skill set, but you can choose who you want to be and how you need to show up moment to moment.
Yeah, I think we need to do a whole nother session on IFS and parts therapy. I've done a lot of work in this, and my adult self is Captain Sully, or I've named him, and it's like who's driving the plane, or who's driving the bus, or who's flying the plane right now? And it's like, okay, is this the right person? And do we need to, like, great, go take a seat. Captain Sully's going to come and take over, and they're going to figure out how to land this plane in the Hudson, and everyone's going to be okay, right? But it's like knowing that you have these parts and acknowledging them, right? If you shut them down and you try to get them, hey, you don't exist or you're not valid, that's where you run into problems. And if you got to validate them, but you have to then also say, look, okay, this is not the time and place. I hear you. I understand what you need. You will be taken care of, just not now. Have a seat. Put on your seatbelt, right? And we're going to take care of this situation. So we're going to hit time here. And like I said, we could probably do a whole nother session on this, but I want to make sure people have contact information. So Dane, if people want to get a hold of you, find out more about what you're working on, what's the best way to get that?
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn. There's a kangaroo between Dane and Grunewald. You'll find me there. The best email is actually Dane, D-A-N-E, at huddle3.group, which is HUDDL3.group. And check out the Future of Teamwork podcast that I run too, because we talk about a lot of these topics as well.
Awesome. Make sure that you put all that information in the show comment section on LinkedIn for people.
We'll do that.
Christopher, if people want to get a hold of you and find out more information, what's the best way?
Yeah, so my website, ChristopherFlippiak.com, active on LinkedIn as well, /Christopher Flippiak. You can find me there. There's actually a really good article on how feeling your feelings is like the #1 sales strategy, or how feeling your feelings helps you make more sales. You can find that on my blog, on my website. I'd recommend that all the listeners check that out.
Awesome. Again, make sure you put the links and stuff on the LinkedIn page. People want to get a hold of me, bruce@eckfeldt.com is my email. Eckfeldt.com is my website. Feel free to reach out. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a blast. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks. And really enjoyed the conversation. And thanks so much to the listeners for tuning in.
Yes, thank you. Yes, listeners, if you were watching the replay, like I said, throw comments and questions in there. We'll watch those. Look forward to seeing them and responding, and look forward to seeing you at the next LinkedIn Live. Thanks, everyone.